that is exactly how Sifu feels to play. It is a game about the passage of time, and the wisdom that comes with it. If what you've seen seems interesting, I urge you to go play it. It goes for pretty cheap on sale, and it respects your time and your capability. If you like the feeling of viscerally improving at something, as my hours show, this game might as well be crack. There are 3 difficulties with substantial changes between them as well, so you can go through the whole process from student to master 3 times if you want. Sifu is a game that I love, and it's also a game that leaves me very, very frustrated. Not anything to do with the game. It's balanced fine, and any mistake that you make is your own. But Sifu leaves me frustrated with the industry at large. It released early in 2022, the same year that Elden Ring came out, so obviously it wasn't exactly in the running for Game of the Year, even if it really should have been. Instead, it was looking to be the leader for Best Indie Game, which it lost to Stray. The cat game. It has been 2.5 years since this happened, and I am still annoyed by it. Sifu is the epitome of a perfect game. Most games given such high praise tend to be pretty short, and that's because of an unfortunate universal truth with creation in general. The more you try to do, the exponentially easier it becomes for your work to be flawed, or at least considered to be. The games that are often considered the best are usually miniature experiences, at least relative to the monolithic games that boast tons of content, because the best game trims out all of the content that isn't perfect. You are left with no filler, only a fleeting few hours of the best parts. Sifu is an hour and a half long, give or take. It's an hour and a half that I have experienced over, and over again, each time more satisfying and more rewarding. You run through 5 levels, killing a boss at the end of each one. Every time you die, your age goes up, but there is no unfair difficulty. Any mistake you make is entirely your own. The end goal? Kill or spare the one who killed your father, your Sifu, before getting too old to teach the next generation. If you're not sold based on that alone, watch the Secret Level Sifu episode. Just like the game that it's based on, the short doesn't overstay its welcome either. Being about 6 minutes long, it boils down the entire game's plot, gets across the main theme, and shows the main gameplay gimmick. This should genuinely just be an ad you can watch, it's not exactly TV. I'm incredibly impressed that it manages to capture Sifu's aesthetic so perfectly. Even the hot food is mimicking the on-fire second wind stance that enemies can go into. It's so good. I want to specifically point out that stance after reviving. That is exactly what Sifu is all about. The come at me pose, the determination, the I got it this time attitude, and of course, the style. I have no idea what is going on in the Wraith Death Realm scene though. Someone please tell me. Sifu's combat system is very unique. Nothing else I've played is quite as good at facilitating group fights without it feeling like a complete nightmare with you either fighting the controls, camera, sanity, or all 3. Combat animations were all choreographed by an actual Sifu, a martial arts expert in a kung fu style called Pakmei. I'll talk about this more later, as it's in service of an excellent combat system. In short, it's Sekiro, but even better. In long, it's about managing fighting groups of people by either killing them outright or getting their structure low enough with attacks and parries to perform a takedown. You'll be managing anywhere from 3 to 8 guys on average, with positioning and target priority as an extremely heavy main focus. Generally, you'll be finishing down one target at a time to whittle down an entire group, most of the time finishing them off with a takedown execution. Somehow, these executions have incredible camera work, despite the fact that you can just move the camera during them, and I honestly don't know how that's possible. It's an incredible testament to the combat in this game that I can just play it with the HUD completely removed just fine. Enemy attacks are well telegraphed, and any changes in enemy states are shown not just with the UI, but with sound effects, like the distinctive clank when an enemy structure is broken, or with visuals, like how NPCs steam black smoke when they're stunned. The player has plenty of ways to attack enemies with easy, simple combos that can be mixed into each other in an impressive amount of ways, but the main success of the combat system is your reactive options. I'm going to use the Souls games for comparison because they are very bad at this very thing. The following will be a massive oversimplification because these games are massive with hundreds of options, but in general, in Dark Souls, when you're about to get hit, you re-roll, press the roll button. You can have a shield, but it's only one of many playstyles, and even if you do use it, it can often lead to feeling like you're cheating, or more often than not, blocking with your shield can be such a good option that it completely invalidates rolling most of the time. So in short, no matter what, you're really doing one thing as a reaction to enemies the vast majority of the time, every single time, and that's the entire game. Even in Sekiro with a parry, you're still parrying everything rather than mixing it up. It does have some upgrades like the Makiri counter, which give you another option to use against some enemies, but once again, it's a replacement. You can't parry these guys, and you have to use this instead. Back to Sifu, when you're being attacked, you can respond by either holding your guard, try to deflect the attack with timing, or dodge either to the side or up. None of these invalidate the other options, as they all provide unique bonuses. If you hold your guard, it will block almost anything and doesn't require any timing, making it a very good panic reaction. It even works against heavy attacks regardless of direction, though enemy attacks fill up your structure bar. When it's filled, the next attack will hit through your guard no matter what. But if you avoid the attack, doing so lowers your structure bar, naturally making a good fit to mix with guard. On top of that, the timing is very forgiving and can be spammed pretty easily, and the attack continues going through and it might hit other enemies nearby. Of course, if you read their attack wrong, you're definitely going to feel it. Now if you deflect the attack, bar the telegraph grabs, you can deflect any attack in the game, and doing so fills up their structure and might give you an opening. But it's much riskier, and attacks fill up your structure bar like with guarding. Essentially, deflecting is an aggressive defensive option, avoiding is a defensive option, with guard as a fallback. Some attacks even serve as defensive options in their own right, like the crotch punch, which ducks high attacks. Giving you 3 strictly defensive reactions to attacks, on top of the more proactive ones, gives you so many options and things to think about when the entire game is fighting and reacting to enemies, especially because their usage plays into each other. It's natural for guarding or deflecting to then necessitate avoiding to lower your structure. Because of the way that the controls work, a failed deflect can easily become a guard or an avoid as well, which can feel great if you manage to transition into that after screwing up the initial option. But it is unimaginably refreshing coming from Souls-likes where you get one option ever, and the entire game is learning when to press the invincibility button. The real slice of perfection, though, is that against most enemies you'll want to use different responses to each of their kit, but you don't have to. You can just avoid everything that a boss does, but ideally against, say, Sean, you want to guard his shoulder check, deflect the first 2 attacks in his combo, and then avoid the third one so you can punish. Learning and then acting on this is extremely rewarding. I think a huge part of why this works is that the largest downside of using each option is that you're not getting the benefits of using a different option, rather than being punished for using the option that you chose. Let me give an example of this if it was done poorly. Imagine if when you guard, instead of it filling up your structure, you instead took chip damage from whatever hit you. Then, instead of thinking, damn, I wish I deflected that to get them closer to takedown, you would be thinking, damn, I wish I deflected that so I wouldn't be taking this unavoidable damage. All of this combat is happening across 5 levels, ignoring the new arenas, and on the surface, 5 levels might not seem like a lot. Then you realize practically every single room has its own track and unique camera angle, and that puts into perspective how unimaginably polished each of these levels truly are. You can hit the punching bags. The levels aren't anything particularly complex, it's a bunch of group fights, but the environments are so interesting to look at and so varied that each fight always feels fresh. They also do an excellent job of pacing the fights. One-on-ones lead into group fights, which lead into smaller groups with reinforcements, which lead into some easy mooks to let you catch your breath. Except for maybe the museum, fights put next to each other never ever resemble each other, which keeps making things feel fresh even if there's only 5 enemy types. Even if fights can sometimes play out similarly, the quickness of the combat combined with how every single enemy in the game looks distinct, with environments that feel different in both how they're laid out and look, means that you'll probably never notice, and even if you do, it's so visceral that you very well might not care. At least I know that I don't, and I'm usually a huge stickler for this kind of thing. I didn't even notice that there were only 5 enemy types until making this video, because every single enemy looks unique. Not only do those 5 enemy types have different tiers, plenty will be given weapons as well, which makes them feel totally different. There's never a, oh, it's this guy again moment, unless you're replaying a level, in which case that can create its own unique dynamic that I haven't really experienced in another game. You'll get to a certain part of a level and be like, ah, it's the fish guy again, I hate the fish guy. On the surface, he's just a random higher tier gangster who tends to get second wind, but the repeated encounters with them and the context of where they're placed in the level makes them feel like a distinct character. This naturally makes you start creating your own personal antagonists who you will eventually overcome. Fish Butcher Bandana Dude hasn't killed me in a long time, but I very distinctly remember a time where this guy might as well have been on the FBI's Most Wanted. It's a similar dynamic to what tends to happen with Battle Royale maps. As you play, each part of the level starts to accrue memories from the dozens of hundreds of fights that you've taken there, but instead is a wholly single-player experience focused entirely on you, your own growth, and your own mastery. I'm probably making the game come off as more one-dimensional than it is. Supplementary to playing through the levels is assembling your detective board, which you can grow by finding clues in levels which give tidbits about the bosses and their organizations. This is done in a way that is so hands-off that you can completely ignore it, so you only have to interact with it if you care. I like this a lot. It makes each of the 5 bosses feel much more like real people with stuff going on than a moveset attached to a custom model. But if that's all you want them to be, it doesn't stop you from treating them that way. I appreciate that these aren't cryptic either. The clues that you get are well thought out and make sense. And once you have everything assembled, you have a very clear picture of what's going on. There's not really much ambiguity. You are presented with the whole picture and it's up to you to figure out how you feel about it, rather than being presented with one where the most important parts were either scrubbed out or not made, where you're expected to fill in the blanks yourself. If you regularly yearn back for the time where you could just purchase a game and own it, then buy, support, and play Sifu. The only DLC that this game has is for like 3 of the uniforms, and arguably not even the best ones. The Kill Bill tracksuit and John Wick suit are locked behind doing quite a few of the challenges. The DLC is clearly much more like a supporters pack if you want to throw more money at the developers, and if you couldn't tell, I think you should. As for the challenges which serve as the gate that you must pass to earn a few of those new uniforms, the arenas that they're hosted in are incredibly impressive to me. For context, these were all added in a patch post-release for free for everyone. All the arena stuff is totally free. Lots of the new environments are completely new, with no reused assets whatsoever. Practically every one of the 100-some new challenges were interesting in their own way. The standout highlight for me being this one where you fight 5 waves of enemies atop a helipad, each wave meant to represent one of the 5 levels. As you finish off a wave, the next level's respective boss comes over to loom at you menacingly, which was a fantastic touch. It's not the only level that's like this either. There's also one in the Abyss, which is pretty similar, but with 25 waves instead of 5, including almost every single enemy in the game. Did I mention that every single enemy in the game has a unique model? You can throw your own modifiers on each of these challenges as well, which most impressively to me included changing your moveset. It was entirely unnecessary to program enemy attacks in such a way that they could be used by the player, but they sure did it anyway. A few of the challenges use this as well, either to make an interesting and unique fight, or a Matrix reference. One of the arena spaces is this entirely unique linear server farm, and it's so good that it honest to god feels like a section from the main game that got cut. Each room has really interesting unique camera angles that are reminiscent of the original Metal Gear Solid, a comparison that I'm sure didn't go over the developers' heads. Plenty of the challenges are references, and it's clear they were made with love by some very passionate people. I loved that in the final set of arenas, there's a fight between you as your father and every single boss. It's the perfect capstone to the game, really. After all those hours of mastering the combat system, prove that you're finally better than your Sifu by taking on and beating what he failed against. The real reason that I wanted to bring all of this up is because instead of fighting them all at once, they come in 3 waves. 3 waves that are actually accurate to the opening. I'm gonna try my best to get these pronunciations right, apologies as I'm American. First, it's Kuroki and Jinfeng, then Yang Waxin, followed by Sean and Fajar. The challenge's 3 waves matching up with the opening is a level of detail so unnecessary that it shows the developers love this game even more than maybe I do. Despite dropping a perfect game for their debut with combat that outmatches its peers, a beautiful, captivating aesthetic, and an overarching theme that makes you appreciate your mortality, Sifu lost astray, which is truly a shame. Deliver a game with perfect marks on practically every level, based around intriguing and unique themes, give it a massive free content drop after release, 7 out of 10. But deliver a game with a cat in it? 10 out of 10, game of the year. There was another thing I wanted to get into before this video is over, because I might never have a chance to talk about this game again for a while. The dedication to keeping it accurate, faithful, and respectful of its influences is really commendable, and it adds a lot. The protagonist fights with a kung fu style called Pakme. Even though this intro scene is showing off a stance literally called lightning hands, I was surprised to learn that it's even faster in real life. Things have to be slowed down for them to be readable in a game, but real life has no such limits, especially for a form that's intended to severely injure you at best. Here's Benjamin Calusi, Sifu's choreographer, proving my point. Having the main character fight extremely differently from everyone else makes him, and by extension you, feel like you stand out a lot, which both feels great and reinforces the game's theme of mastery through practice. Initially, I thought the game's other main theme of attaining Wude, I don't know how to pronounce it, I got it right, it's fine. It is Wude. Initially, I thought its theme of attaining Wude through forgiveness was a little misplaced given how many people you relentlessly murder. It's not really plausible to pass some of these deaths off as non-lethal. After all, you are throwing them down an elevator shaft. But the game's themes have a surprising amount of depth. I won't get too far into it here, but there's a really great Reddit post going over what attaining Wude actually means in the context of the game, with a breakdown of each of the antagonists. Each are shown to be pretty severely damaged, like the first guy you fight makes drugs on an industrial scale and is dying of a terminal illness. and sparing each of them is intended to teach them something, culminating with teaching the one who killed your father. Without the context of what Wu-Dai actually is, I thought it was a story about forgiveness and, the classic of revenge being bad, but it's not, thankfully. Wu-Dai is focused less on being morally good and more about mastery of the self, both in skill and in knowing who you are. Sparing each of the bosses is an act of kindness, yes, but ultimately it's to clear the protagonist's own mind and prove that he's completely in control of himself, as opposed to being like a vigilante type taking the law into his own hands. With that context, it fits the game perfectly with its focus on combat mastery and age. If there are any Stray fans in the chat, I would like to hear how on earth that game is worth more than this. I am willing to be proven wrong, but I highly doubt that I will be. You ain't seeing a Blur Studios production of a cat, you know? Getting them on board is a high bar. It looks like someone put more time into this guy's face than most games put into bug testing. Relatedly, on screen right now are all of the bugs I have ever experienced playing Sifu. That's it. It's that polished. Though sometimes bosses tap into the ancient art of lag no jutsu when they're losing. Now, my least favorite part of the video, where YouTube wants me to invent a call for action. I already screwed myself because the best way to garner comments is to pronounce things wrong. It's actually optimal for my job to intentionally say all Chinese words and names wrong, but that seems a hair disrespectful. For this video, I thought up a bunch of stuff that I didn't like, so while you can feel free to answer these, and I will read them, I don't know. What the hell am I supposed to ask at the end of the video like this? Did you buy the game? Thanks to my patrons, Emmy and Potato especially. Like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill, and have a good night.